Okay, thank everybody for joining us today for this last class on Kabbalah verse magic, and it's more sort of a wrap up and just talk about a couple of things, and we're going to keep it shorter today about this idea of Kabbalah. So this a quick wrap, just a quick wrap up, and then I want to finish off with a very interesting phenomena that it's really beautiful to look into in our daily lives. Number one. Right, we spoke about the history of it, and not necessarily in the right order. Right, we spoke about the history of Kabbalah. Kabbalah is a part of the oral Torah, and something so important to re-emphasize and to remember that it's part of the oral Torah. It's not something made up. It's not something that some rabbi said or someone did. It's all part of the oral Torah that was given to Moshe, right, at Mount Sinai. It's called Sod. It's the secrets. It's the hidden component of the Torah. We spoke about how to transmit it. It has to be taught from a rabbi to student. You have to be on a specific level of knowledge. We spoke about the Pardes, about the four great rabbis. Only Rabbi Akiva walked out. Pardes represents the four components, right, of the Torah. That's what it means. He walked into the orchard, right? But only Rabbi Akiva walked out, and the commentaries say on the highest level, not to take away from the other great rabbis, right? But Rabbi Akiva perfected the other parts of the Torah to be able to truly comprehend and to receive the Kabbalah to the highest level, the Sod to the highest level. Therefore, he walked out unscathed. Right? But if otherwise, you can be, it's dangerous. You're tapping into things that are beyond their comprehension, and it messes with our head. It messes with our ability to comprehend things. We could have a computer overload to a certain extent, an informational overload. It could have a spiritual overload to a certain degree, and therefore one has to be careful that he or she, right, has a level of knowledge of Torah, the written Torah, the oral Torah, the halacha component of the oral Torah, the midrash component of the oral Torah, right, the drash component of the oral Torah. This and then one could truly understand the Sod component of all Torah. We spoke about that the Zohar is one of the Svarim, the books that bring out the oral Torah, just like the Mishnah and the written Torah, right? But there's others, the Sefer Yetzirah, right? There's Ma'aseh Merkava, right? There's other Svarim and written by other sages. Some say that Avraham Avinu wrote the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, right? And we spoke about the sort of the different components, right? One referring to more the nature of the world, seeing God in the nature of the world, and one talking about the aloof, the component of that we can't comprehend, above and beyond the spirituality of the realm of Torah and in this world. And even angels can't really comprehend such a magnificent component of truly understanding the makeup of the creation and a relationship with God to the highest level, right? But the Zohar is sort of the most commonly used because Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the author, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who happened to be a student of Rabbi Akiva, right? Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, right, after sort of meditating in the cave for 20 odd years, and don't want to go into the whole story, right? He went in ahead and he wrote the Zohar, and as we said, just quickly a little history, it sort of got lost, or it was only transmitted from rabbi to student, and sort of was more orally, it was just used just to reference, just like everything else. And since it was a select group, right, so it wasn't as much written, and certain mistakes crept in over the years. Not everybody had it. We don't find Ramban Nachmanides quoting it at all. He quotes the Sefer Yetzirah. He quotes some different midrashim. Right? He speaks about Sod all the time. Right? But Derech HaSod, in the ways of Sod, of the hidden ways of the Torah. Right? But he doesn't mention the Zohar at all. The Ramban lived in the 1200s, right? 1300s, more 1200s, late 1200s, right? Tradition tells us sort of got lost, and it was sort of manuscripts here, manuscripts there, and the Arizal, it is known as Arizal Zohar, means to say that Arizal went ahead and he edited it. The Arizal went ahead and, based off his knowledge of Torah and Kabbalah that he received from his rabbis and studied to such a depth, that he went ahead and he sort of edited and fixed up the Zohar And that's the Zohar that we have today, right? That's the Zohar that we have today that's edited through the Arizal, right? And that's the legitimate Zohar. That's the one that's used, right? That's the one without any mistakes. And that's why it's sort of known as the Arizal's Zohar, right? We spoke about different different ideas of what the Zohar is sort of the Sod is sort of made up of the zodiacs, what we call the Sphirot, right? That's the way that Hashem feeds information into this world. We spoke about the 10 Sphirot, right? Gvura, Chesed, Netzach, Hod, right? I don't want to go through all of them right now. We went through it last week, right? The different 10 Sphirot, right? 7 of those regarding the 7 days of the week are related to the 7 guests that come on Sukkot, right? Also the seven people that the seven relationships that we have with the Sphira Omer, right? The counting of the Omer, also related to that, right? And that's a 7, but there's really 10. Right, there's 3 more, right, and that's the Sphirot, the way Hashem brings the materialist spirituality into this realm that really is what governs this world and really feeds this world and really sustains this world. This concept of this high level of spirituality. That being said, we then go ahead, right, and understand the concept of the free will, right. God created that in order for us to have free will. Because if God just revealed all the hidden Torah, we all could comprehend the hidden Torah, right? And we won't really have such a free will, because we all didn't have to struggle for it. It sort of became clear. It's like opening up the Chumash, and we could see all the mystical components, the depth behind it. We could see the makings. Like you have a car, right? That it's all clear, right? Or they have these watches that you could see the mechanics working, right? Or these, they have like these machines like with a glass, and you could see inside and how everything's turning around, right? So, oh, look, I could see it. I see how everything's working, right? If you don't see it, it's like you're amazed. Oh my gosh, how's it work? It's so cool, right? But you have to believe, and if you see it all working, right? So then you see it all working. So if God opened up and revealed the hidden component of the Torah to everyone, right, then there wouldn't be such free will. Right? And that's sort of the idea behind, we explained the idea behind having Sod, right, having this idea, right, of Sod. On that note, we then went ahead and expanded also, right, on the concept, right, of the importance, right, of making sure that when we learn Zohar, right, we also have the right concept in mind, right? We're in the right state of mind, not only having a teacher, right, not only, realizing it's part of the whole Torah, but we also have to go ahead and learn it in order to realize that this is something to connect to spirituality, to connect to something that's bigger and greater than ourselves. I think this is a basic overview. If I forgot something, I apologize. So feel free to go to my YouTube channel and look up all the classes, right? Just sort of a quick synopsis, right, of what we spoke about. I want to conclude, and with this series, first of all, I want to thank you all for joining us. And I want to conclude with a very powerful idea that I think will really resonate with all of us. And I touched upon it in one of the classes, how Kabbalah, right, the Sod, right, it affects our daily lives. And we think Kabbalah is foreign to us. It's beyond our comprehension. It's beyond this. It's how we connect to it. Okay, so I just explained. You have to have your rabbi. You have to do this. You have to know the. You have to know the halacha. You have to know this. You have to know. Right. So how does it play in our daily lives? How does it manifest itself in our daily lives? Right. So I just want to give a couple examples of what we do in our daily lives. Right. Or some thoughts that we might be thinking in our daily lives. Right. That come from Kabbalah. Right, come from the Sod, come from the world of Kabbalah, right, and has influenced us, has become part of our halacha, right, and as I explained, I think last week, the week beforehand, we learned it through our great sages who know those sodos, know those things, and felt to include it into our daily living. So we spoke about last week, Right, we spoke about last week about our tefillah, right? We expanded on the order of our tefillah, the order of our prayer, right? That we have, we and I'm not going into right now, right? But just quickly, right? We spoke about how we have our brachos in the morning, and our Pesukah de Zimra, and our brachos Kriyas Shema, and our Shmona Esrei, and how those four things are connected to the four alamas, the four worlds, right? And I'm not going to get into that right now, but we see right there that it has translated into practicality in our daily lives, the way our tefillah is structured, right? So that's one example. Another example that we talked about very quickly, right, that we spoke about is washing our hands in the morning, right? This idea of washing our hands in the morning, right? Al natilas yadayim, right? Right when we wake up, and because we have tumah, we have impurity in our hands because our part of our soul, parts of our body, and when we go to sleep, that's a Kabbalistic idea, right? And in the code of Jewish law, the Torah, right, actually does not mention it. He doesn't talk about it in halacha. Beis Yosef brings it down, right, and then the Beis Yosef puts it in halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, right. But the Torah does not bring it down. Right? But Beis Yosef brings it down. Not washing our hands for eating, but washing our hands because that has to do with the Beis Hamikdash. It's a different idea, right? But washing our hands in the morning, the Beis Yosef brings it down, and then the Shulchan Aruch codifies it. Beis Yosef, who wrote also the Shulchan Aruch, codifies it. But the Torah, who the Beis Yosef wrote on, and it's sort of the first book that organized in halacha in the structure that we have it today, right? Doesn't bring it down, washing our hands. But so that's another application of where the Kabbalistic ideas, the Sod ideas, is influenced and has become part of our halacha, our daily lives. Another idea is, if you notice in halacha, right, in a lot of things we always do it the right. Right, do it the right first. It's brought down in the Code of Jewish Law in Shulchan Aruch, which is brought down in the Talmud. Right, the Talmud tells us, right, and as I mentioned before, the Talmud, even though it is more in the revealed Torah, but it's hidden in there is the many ideas of the Kabbalistic world is intertwined in the Talmud. The Talmud tells us whenever someone turns, you should always pana liyamin. One should always go to the right. Right, we know if you're not sure to go right and left, we'll go right. Right, there's an idea. One should always go right. If you're not sure which way to go, right, go right. Right, when there's it brought down into the Code of Jewish Law, right? Yeah, growing up, I remember also, we used to say, you always go right, right? Brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, right? When you get dressed in the morning, right? That's Code of Jewish Law talks about getting dressed in the morning, right? So it won't tell you which outfit to wear, right? So if you're like you can say, oh great, the Code of Jewish Law tells me how to get dressed, right? I could save some time, which outfit, which tie to put on, right? No, that's not what it's telling me, right? What the Code of Jewish Law does tell you that when you get dressed, one should always put on his right shoe, the right side, the right sleeve on, the right end. When you wash yourself, when you take a shower or bath or whatever it is, when you wash yourself, you should wash your right part of your body first your head, right? Then your right part of your body, then your left part of your body. We see many ideas regarding that the right side, right, we do first, right? We're supposed to do the right side first. The question is, right, why do we find that the right, what's so special about the right, right? What's so special about the right? So the idea is based off a Kabbalistic concept. Now it's brought down in halacha, but it's based off on a Kabbalistic concept, right? Because the Kabbalah talks about that. Remember, we spoke about the 10 Sphero, right? What's the first two? Right? The first one is chesed, and the second one is gevura. And the first one is chesed, acts of kindness and being nice and doing acts of kindness to other people. The second one is gevura, is strength, right? There's strength, is being diligent in your mitzvos, and that's a gevura, strength, and not lifting weights, but strength regarding your Judaism, right? So the Kabbalah tells us that the right hand is representing chesed, the first of the 10 Sphero. The left hand represents gevura, the second of the Sphero. Right now, one will say if our right hand is more dominant, right, which that's refers to. If one's a lefty and his left hand is more dominant, right, there's certain things yes, certain things not, and I'm not getting into all halacha the discussion right now, right? But if one's right hand, our right hand, which the majority of the right hand is more dominant, right? So that should be gevura, that should be strength. Why is that chesed, right? So I once saw this beautiful idea that it's actually harder to do chesed, to be kind to other people. You need more strength to really do chesed in its proper way, right? And to restrain yourself from picking on people and to see the faults in other people, but on the contrary, to do kindness with them and to do acts of kindness. So that's stronger. So if you could do that, then you're really strong, right? Gevura, strength, right? Of course, it's hard, and you need to be diligent within yourself and to be to make sure that you overcome the challenges of society and all that. And it's no easy task, right? But that's the left hand, that's the weaker hand, right? But that being said, say the Kabbalist or Ramchal and others, right, that's why we do everything with our right first, because we're showing that the first act, the first thing that we always should relate to is our chesed component, right? Our relationship with other people, our chesed component. Of course, we have to have gvura, and of course, we can't compromise on our Judaism, and of course, we can't compromise on our ideals, but together, right? We go ahead and we have to chesed always to be first, right? And as it really explains the passage in the Talmud, it says that a rabbi should be makar b'yamin, should bring close his student with the right, markek b'smol, and push him away, meaning discipline him with the left, right? Representing the concept of bring him in with acts of kindness with your right. Show more acts of kindness, show more of a relationship, a loving relationship with your students, with your congregants, right? But you still have to have your left. You still have to be disciplined. You still have to give a good, strong sermon. You still have to, discipline your students and your children. But do that with the left, right? With the weaker hand, which represents gevura, right? So this idea is a Kabbalistic idea also, right? This concept that influences our daily lives is a Kabbalistic idea. Another idea that is translated into our daily lives, something that we don't even think about so much anymore, right? Where it comes from, right? And that is the holiday of Shavuos, right? What's the big custom of the holiday of Shavuos? What do? We stay up all night, right? We stay up all night learning, right? The holiday of Shavuos, we stay up all night learning. Where does that come from? Oh, it's halacha, right? Got to stay up all night, right? It's actually from the Zohar, right? The Zohar tells us, right, the idea of staying up all night, and Rav Yosef Cairo speaks about in the Beis Yosef that a magid, a sort of like an angel kind of thing, came to him because he learned up all night and told him how great this is, beloved by God. Right, and it comes from the idea that the Jewish people slept that night. That's a Zohar. That's from the Kabbalistic idea. Staying up all night is another Kabbalistic idea, right, that we sort of have integrated into our daily living. Another one, right, is the Kabbalah Shabbos. The whole Kabbalah Shabbos, the Chadodi, right, the whole thing, right, was the Chadodi was written by Moshe Isserles. He was a student of the Arizal, right? In the whole idea of bringing in the Shabbos queen. So now the Talmud talks about the Shabbos queen. That's what Talmud says. The rabbis used to go out and greet the Shabbos queen, right? But the Kabbalah Shabbos that we have, the Chadodi, right, that comes from the students of the Arizal. Actually, for a long time, a lot of Lithuanian communities, especially German communities, did not say Lechadodi, right? Did not say any of that stuff, right? It wasn't a tradition. It was a relatively new thing that was brought integrated, right? But that's something that we do all the time. That's another a practical application of where we see Kabbalah that plays into our daily lives. And the list goes on and on. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just wanted to show, right, and I just want to show that we have to realize that all parts of the Torah we're connected to. And I want to go back to a question that Michael asked, right? Michael Platzer asked a very powerful question. He says, if Kabbalah is part of what was given to Moshe, right? So we all have the rights to it, right? Just like all oral Torah, we all have the right to it. It was something that's for everybody. Why is it only for a unique group of people? And Michael, that was an awesome question, right? And really brings out this point that we're trying to bring out, that of course, Kabbalah is something for everybody. And therefore the rabbis have, and this is some examples that I said, there's many other examples, right? That's why the rabbis have taught us, and you learn Dessler, and you learn other Chasik Sfarim, or other Dar Chaim, or the Ramban. They teach us certain concepts. The whole idea of resurrection, Chias HaMesim, is hidden in the Torah, right? But it's brought out by the Kabbalists, right? That's part of our belief system, right? The idea of so many other thoughts that we have, the meanings behind the four species, a lot of the tamim, some of the reasons, but we have the concept that the four species represent four parts of our body, concept that four species represent four different kind of Jews. Those are all Kabbalistic concepts, right? Those are all depth and sod concepts. Just there's certain things that the rabbis felt that that's something that we could retain, and something that it will help us grow, or certain practices that we do sort of elevate our neshama by doing these practices, or remove some of the impurity that they have taught us to do through their learning of the Kabbalah, right? And have taught us, right, and have allowed us to interact with. But at the same time, right, we have to realize that the depth of Kabbalah, true learning of Kabbalah, right, is available to everybody. You just have to be ready to be able to receive it, right? You have to make yourself that vessel. It is part of the oral Torah, and it is part of something that we're all connected with, but we have to be vessels to be able to receive that part of the Torah, right? And that's incumbent upon us to make ourselves available and ready to do that. We have to learn Torah, we have to learn Chumash, we have to learn Rashi, we have to learn Medrash, we got to learn the Talmud, we got to learn Halacha, right? We have to make ourselves ready. Doesn't mean to say that we say, oh, okay, Kabbalah, I'm not connected to Kabbalah, it's a different part of the Torah, it's nothing to do. No, there's so many practices that we do, so many thoughts that we have that are intertwined with our daily lives, that are intertwined with Kabbalah. And that's sort of the importance to sort of remember that it is part of our lives, and it's extremely integrated in our lives. But at the same time, the learning of it, the connecting to the depth of it, we have to go ahead and make ourselves vessels for this part of the Torah. I want to thank you all for joining me. We're going to keep, as I said, keeping this class short. It's sort of more of a wrap up, and sort of just bring the last point out. I also have a lot of things on my mind, and I apologize. But I want to thank you all for sticking with me for this last month, and going together and learning this very important topic, something that is intriguing and interesting, but more importantly, something that's very relevant, right? And something that's very important to have a clarity in, something that's very important to make sure that we have the right perspective, right? And therefore, when we do hear someone saying, oh, the Kabbalah this, the Kabbalah, realizing that, what are you talking about, right? And then also realizing that we do connect to it on our level. Again, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to